Capcom released 3 different Mega Man games for 3 different consoles at the end of 1993, and I recently played them all. The grand finale, Mega Man X for the Super Nintendo. They did it. They put the Mega Man name on the SNES and they changed things up. X is a new robot created by Dr. Light and is not, in fact, a Roman numeral for 10. When I was younger and Mega Man 10 already existed, I was confused by this. Mega Man X is instead a brand new series opening with a bang. The original series takes place in 20XX, whereas the X series is set in 21XX. Dr. Kane, a new scientist, stumbled across a capsule from the past with a note left from Dr. Light. The note is displayed during the long intro sequence before the title screen and warns that the robot inside, X, could be very dangerous. Dr. Light knew he wouldn't be alive to see the complete robot, and the capsule needed to test his reliability for 30 years. X can think and feel, but he's a pacifist by nature. Unsurprisingly, Kane was intrigued. He created similar robots named Reploids, some taking the form of animals, and some humanoid, but their safety was never tested. The animals started attacking humans for unknown reasons and were labeled as Mavericks. The advanced Reploids had not yet turned and became Maverick hunters to keep the peace. However, their leader eventually became a Maverick too and started a war against humanity. Despite his pacifistic nature, X knew he needed to do something and set off to fight the Mavericks. The former Maverick hunter leader, now leading the war on humans, is named Sigma. Oh no. Capcom predicted the future. Sigma really is the final boss for humanity, although it appears it's arrived a little earlier than 21XX. Once you get to the title screen, you'll see that it's plain. All that build up to this. Fortunately, when you start playing, it's much more detailed. It begins on the highway, and you can see the mass destruction. The highly successful Super Nintendo graphics contrast every other Mega Man game, and the layered effects with the city in the background are great. Various enemies charge at X, and pieces of the raised highway are constantly falling, creating more hazards. One of the first things I noticed was the health bar. It's half the size that I expected. Yeah, this is going to be hard. Capcom turned the classic series into something much easier, but they maintained the famous high difficulty in the brand new X series. The highway stroll is interrupted by a former Maverick hunter, Vile. Your health bar will do you no favors, and it seems like an impossible match. But when X is on the brink of death, his ally Zero storms in and forces Vile to flee. Good thing you have friends. It's also nice to see text boxes to add dialogue to this game. X and Zero will work together to take down the Mavericks, and Zero will head straight to Sigma's fortress while X deals with the animals on the loose. Let's take a look at those animals. This overhauled stage selection screen is iconic, especially the music. The 8 Maverick portraits are bigger and more detailed thanks to the Super Nintendo's ability to display more colors at a time. The only problem is, I can't tell what all of these animals are since they're not labeled by default. You can see a stage preview in the middle of the screen, which is nice. Fortunately, the buttons on the corner allow you to change the center display, and one of the options is spec. It includes name, height, weight, and the attacks the Mavericks use. Another option is to see the map of this world and where each Maverick is, and it's completely useless. Fun for some people, probably. Now, you wouldn't know this without the internet, but the recommended Maverick to start with is Chill Penguin, and there are a few good reasons why. This game is going to tear you apart. It's been a while since I've played a game as brutal as this. You might get through the stages relatively unscathed, but the bosses will almost always be a roadblock. With your half-sized health bar, don't be surprised if you game over before beating a single Maverick stage. When you start, and you can only use X's Buster, Chill Penguin at least seems reasonable to defeat. However, the main reason anyone should start here is seen in the middle of the stage, and you can't miss it. Dr. Light conveniently left a capsule in the icy cave containing a big upgrade. A hologram message plays first, then X enters the capsule to receive a new function. The game demonstrates the new power, and then you're good to go. This one is the dash. You may have noticed at the beginning that you could charge your Buster, but not slide like regular Mega Man. This dash is a good improvement. It has its own button on the Super Nintendo controller, and you can even jump while dashing to cover more distance. The remaining body upgrades won't be so simple though. Every Maverick stage has at least one hidden upgrade, again differentiating the X series with the classic series. All 8 contain an energy heart, which will add 2 health points to your health bar. With all hearts collected, your total health will match a regular Mega Man game. Then there are 4 sub-tanks to find. Capcom didn't place any E-tanks in this game, which also adds to the difficulty, but these sub-tanks are an interesting replacement. If you collect health pickups with full health, the sub-tanks will gradually be filled with energy to use later. And of course, there are 4 body upgrades including the dash. smash. The helmet modification gives X a headbutt which can break certain small blocks, and the armor upgrade is obtained after fighting an optional mini-boss. It reduces the damage you take, which is extremely helpful. Finally, hidden in an overly awkward location is the supercharge. Seriously, is this the intended solution to reach the capsule? This adds a new level of charge to your buster, although you have to be patient to let it charge long enough. It allows you to charge up any other weapon, creating several new functions that I didn't explore enough. Okay, this is good. These new features were sufficient to renew the interest of many players, including myself 32 years later. Some stage designs fell flat, but at least they were trying something new. The upgrades and collectibles forced me to enter a few stages multiple times so that I could utilize X's body upgrades or weapons earned from defeating Mavericks. Sometimes, stages would change significantly after you defeat another Maverick too. For instance, if you defeat Launch Octopus in his underwater stage, Sting Chameleon's jungle stage will be flooded. You can take advantage of the flood to reach an energy heart. Similarly, defeating Chill Penguin will freeze the lava at the bottom of Flame Mammoth's factory stage. That makes it much easier since you can bypass several challenges and it's required to reach the energy heart again. So far I've mentioned a penguin, a chameleon, an octopus, and a mammoth. That's quite a range of animals already. You'll also meet Spark Mandrill, whose stage is rather shocking, Armored Armadillo, he's on a roll, Storm Eagle, who apparently still uses an airport to fly, and Boomer Coanger. Boomer what? Okay, Boomer, what is a Coanger? Apparently it means stag beetle, although it isn't a real Japanese word either. This is the only unaltered Maverick name in the English translation because it sounded cool, I guess. I didn't have a clue what I would be fighting though. I didn't even know what boomer meant in this case, and if anything, I thought there would be tons of explosions going boom. Nope, it just means he fights with a boomerang, so his stage theme doesn't relate to him at all. I will briefly talk about his stage though. X has an ability from the start that I haven't mentioned at all yet, and it's heavily showcased here. We're in a vertical stage climbing up a tower, and these have had mixed success in previous Mega Man games. X has a new method of climbing. He can kick off from the wall and keep climbing higher with ease until an enemy knocks him off. You can use this ability anywhere, and it's a fun addition. You'll learn to hate it later though. There are so many cool features added to enhance the player's experience, and I was on board with everything Capcom brought in. It was clear that they were headed in the right direction, and the Super Nintendo helped everything look more impressive than before. And how could I not mention the absolutely rocking soundtrack? The 8-bit soundtracks to classic Mega Man games are iconic, but here, with 16-bit sounds that could imitate all kinds of instruments, the electric guitar is a perfect fit. Setsuo Yamamoto nailed every song in this soundtrack, and I think it was hands down the best soundtrack in the X series. Now, I wish the rest of this video could be filled with compliments like this. Everything was set up for success, and I think the game was indeed largely successful. Sadly, there are some issues that are present throughout, and some soured the game for me a little. One of the central mechanics of the game feels unbalanced. It's not a new mechanic for Mega Man games. It's the combat, and given how often you're shooting other robots, big or small, it needs to be fine-tuned in every game. I think the designers tried to do too much. The goal was to make this game one of their most challenging, and in their attempt to rebalance the combat, they made much of the game excessively difficult. It takes longer to charge even the default buster, and longer still if you have the upgrade. Many enemies take more than one fully charged shot to defeat. Because of this, and paired with their shockingly small period of invulnerability, the most efficient method of fighting is to mash the shoot button as fast as you can. I don't know if that's intended, but other methods were far too frustrating for me. It wasn't too fun to mash all the time either, and that unintentionally creates an accessibility issue. Maybe some people like the way the combat shapes out, but I wanted to see a different solution. Okay, maybe they did add another option, although this isn't exactly what I meant. Armored Armadillo's stage holds one of the most bizarre secrets I've ever seen. X can learn the famous Hadoken attack, also called Fireball, which is a crossover with Street Fighter, another popular series by Capcom. It genuinely feels like this should be a playground rumor, except somehow it's true. Not just that Hadoken exists within this game, but the method of unlocking it is unconventional to say the least. You need every upgrade besides the Hadoken, and then you need to die 3 times in a row by falling into the pit at the end of the stage with full health. Then, if you climb the wall above the boss door, a capsule will appear with the upgrade, and Dr. Light is even wearing a headband in the hologram. That's insane. The fireball is powerful enough to one-shot most enemies and a few bosses. You need to have full health though. It activates with the same button combination from Street Fighter, and it's often very hard to input the sequence before taking damage. When you've cleared all 8 initial Maverick stages, you can move on to Sigma's Fortress. The stage selection music changes to be more dramatic, and you still have the option to go back into any previous stage. That was thoughtful of the developers. If you left some upgrades behind, you can still go back for them. There are 4 Sigma stages, and you return to the selection screen after finishing one. X and Zero meet up outside the fortress, and Zero explains their attack strategy. He will go in first and keep the main defenses busy, so X can sneak in afterwards. So Zero just bypasses this whole stage, huh? Meanwhile, I was left trying to guide X up the most diabolical moving platforms imaginable. Okay, maybe I was overcomplicating it, but if you're struggling at the start like I was, you're in for a real treat. At the top, Zero and Vile are engaged in an intense staring contest. Zero commands X to stay back while he takes care of Vile. They go into another room and X chooses to follow, only to discover that Vile took care of Zero instead. Then, anime fighting plotline ensues. Vile weakens X, Zero uses the last of his strength to fail at distracting Vile, X somehow gets back up with full health, and now he can actually win the battle. He's clearly a more advanced robot than we all thought. Vile is finally defeated, but Zero has taken too much damage and offers his last words. You'd be forgiven for thinking that's the end of the stage. There was a boss and big drama. Well, there's more. This game gets especially brutal, perhaps more than any classic Mega Man. When I said you'll learn to hate wall climbing, it all starts in the second half of Sigma's first stage and continues in the next stage. If you get hit, you'll fall back down to the bottom, and even if you take out enemies, they'll return if you scroll them off the screen. So that's no fun. And who else should interrupt this stage but Boomer Kowanger? Of course he would. And of course that doesn't end the stage either. There's one more boss and it's brand new. The second stage brings back the birds, Chill Penguin and Storm Eagle, ending with another new boss, and the third stage contains the remaining 5 beginner Mavericks. I appreciate that the refights are integrated into new stages, unlike in Mega Man 2 through 6. The scope of these Sigma stages with all the bosses is overwhelming, but it isn't necessarily bad. It's constantly frustrating, sure. I can't fault any of the bosses though. The final stage contains a long climb up to Sigma. I find it amusing that Sigma is barely referenced within the game until this point, and you would have to read the manual to know who he is. First, he sets his dog to attack. One Hadoken will do the trick. Next, he draws his legally distinct lightsaber and charges at you himself. One Hadoken will do the trick. Okay, I know I'm lame for finishing the game off this way, but I was in a rush to leave while I was streaming the game. With that said, I don't particularly want to go back to fight these bosses the normal way. And my job still wasn't done. The true final boss is very cool and tries its best to be impossible. I think it's a satisfying ending, and I also think it's ridiculous to expect the player to clear all 3 bosses in a row without dying. On that note, I need to give credit to the designers for the climb at the beginning of the final stage. Simple enemies are repeatedly generated and often drop health pickups. You can take the time to fill up all your sub-tanks so that you can refill your health at any time during the battle. For all the difficulty they added to this game, they were very considerate of players getting stuck in certain places. Once X defeats Sigma to help save humanity, he does his best impression of a Belmont. As the flying fortress collapses, X watches from a faraway cliff, wondering if he really had to fight. But after the credits, he receives a message from Sigma. X only destroyed a temporary body, and Sigma's spirit lives on. Humanity may never be saved from Sigma. This game was a great way to break through on the Super Nintendo. A lot of the little things impressed me, and the big changes did too. So I want to clarify that I'm not rating it down because it's too hard. I'm slightly decreasing my score because I didn't have much fun while I was playing. Almost everywhere I thought to myself, this is cool, but there weren't enough points where it became this is fun. I skipped over most of the Animal Maverick stages, but some of them were lackluster. I think Spark Mandrill and Launch Octopus had unused potential, for instance. Otherwise, I can't find many things wrong with this game. Therefore, my final score for Mega Man X will be 8.1 out of 10. There was some heavy deliberation, but I think I've settled on a score that is close enough to what the game deserves. Classic Mega Man is famous for its high difficulty, and that came back with a vengeance. The cause of high difficulty feels different though. There's a subtle difference in the style of games, and I thought I would really be into this game. Well, maybe this just isn't my kind of game, although I can't explain why. I can only recommend this game if you're looking for a challenge. Or maybe you're not looking for a challenge, but you want to see what's so cool about it. Because it is cool. I love so many things that were made in this game. Something just didn't click for me. Mega Man X1 was re-released as a part of Mega Man X Collection for GameCube and PS2, and later came to PC and modern consoles in the Mega Man X Legacy Collection. The big question now is, did this game do enough to impress the critics at Famitsu? No. Famitsu had never been fond of Mega Man games, and they only gave an average of 6.5 out of 10 to Mega Man X. Nintendo Power felt that it was worthy of the front cover, but their Power rankings only totaled 15.6 out of 20. That seems low, although it was the best score for any game that month. Electronic Gaming Monthly showed their love for this game. They scored it with 9s across the board, which elevated it to their Game of the Month, and it received the Editor's Choice Platinum Award for good measure. Tell me, did you agree with the points I've made? What rating would you give Mega Man X for the SNES, initially released in 1993? Hit the like button for humanity to defeat Sigma in the present day, and subscribe to stop the robot takeover. As ever, thank you for watching, and please continue to be your own unique self.
Ooh, he's got fish.